Kyodo News English World。
はい、皆さんこんにちは。こちらは共同通信海外部のポッドキャストです。海外部では国内外で起きている出来事について取材してオリジナルの英文記事を発信したり、日本語のニュースを英語に翻訳したりしています。海外部のいろんな国から集まる仲間たちと英語と日本語を交えて楽しくディスカッションしていけたらと思っています。私は山口と申します。昨年まで日本語の記者をしていて海外部に移動してきました。よろしくお願いいたします。
Hello everyone, my name is Toma. I've been at Kyoto for 4 to 5 years now. I am a massive bookworm, and one of the best books I read in 2023 was The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. よろしくお願いします。
はい、ありがとうございます。なんと今日はマニラ支局からスペシャルゲストとして、マリカーさんにお越しいただいております。今回は、マリカーさんをゲストとして英語を中心におしゃべりをしていけたらと思っています。よろしくお願いします。 Thank you for joining us, Marika-san.
Thank you so much for having me. Kamusta kayong lahat? That's the Tagalog for konnichiwa minasan. Yeah, it's nice to be here with you today.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you as well. Yeah.
Could you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Oh, sure. As you've mentioned, I'm from Manila. I'm working for Kyodo News, the English desk of the Kyodo News. We're reporting from Manila, the Philippines, and we're actually here since Friday to cover primarily the ASEAN-Japan commemorative summit, which actually was just concluded today. So yeah, it's my third time to be in Japan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's always a pleasure. It's always a lovely trip to visit your country. Yeah.
Wow. Could you explain a little bit about the Manila Bureau, like how many people are there and like what kind of work you do, like what kind of topics you cover?
Right. So our bureau chief, of course, is Nihonjin. He is Mr. Ken Sasaki. And there are two Filipino reporters one of them is me. We're both working on the English stories. So it's usually Mr. Sasaki writes in for the Japanese readers, and we do the English version of the stories. We also have two more Filipino staff, so working with us at admin admin stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, normally we cover defense topics because, as you might understand, Japan and the Philippines are very working very closely, especially these days, for the security issues, especially in the South China Sea for us.
Yeah.
And I believe Japan also has similar issues with China with regards to the East China Seas. So we usually work on defense stories, security stories, and also because the Philippines, by the way, is the first country to receive Japan's military grants, which was this year. So a lot of things happening on that aspect. We are also covering, of course, the foreign affairs, and normally, of course, our President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
I see.
Is it mostly coverage in the Philippines, or do you also cover other Southeast Asian countries?
Yeah, right. Well, actually, we do have bureaus in other Southeast Asian countries. Although for us in Manila, because the Philippines is quite, I think it's the closest Southeast Asian country to Guam. So we go there from time to time to cover. And what's going to happen there, I mean, next year perhaps, is that they're going to start moving the Marines from Okinawa to Guam, so we're really looking forward to that as well. Yeah.
So what got you into journalism to begin with?
Good question.
Okay. So actually Kyodo News is my first foreign job as a journalist. Before, I used to work for a local Philippine newspaper. So I just joined Kyodo News quite fairly new, like 2 years ago, I think. So yeah, but because I took but to answer your question, I took up communication arts in the university. So there, the rest is history. I ended up in journalism.
I see. Like, did you feel like any kind of like culture shock, like moving from like like Filipino company to a Japanese company?
Yeah, that's a really good good question. Actually, I was not really culture shocked, but especially at first, it was there's a lot of. Until now, I would say that I'm still learning the ropes of working for a foreign media, and of course, Kyodo News is one of the, especially in Southeast Asia, it has a really strong presence, so there was like a transition period from working locally because the topics are different, and of course, the audience is just the Filipinos. But now we have to keep in mind that we're writing for an international audience. So topics, for instance, have to be international. And also the way we write it, we have to make sure that the audiences from different countries understand, especially the terms, the words. So yeah.
And so you have to add like background info to maybe something that you would find basic information. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
I see. I'm just curious. So in Japanese, like a reporting culture, like there's this thing called like morning attacks and like night attacks, which is like for example, like you're trying to like have an interview with a key person, like on a specific topic. So like you kind of like identify like where they live and then try to like get a direct interview with them at their doorstep. For example, like early in the morning or like late at night, like when there's like no people around.
Yeah,
like
you
to try to get like exclusive.
You often
information.
see like a group of journalists like kind of huddling around a house, and it's like they're trying to get a quote from someone.
Right.
Yeah. Do you have that in the Philippines as well?
Well, we call it staking out.
Yeah.
Especially, by the way, there was a big issue early this year about the Luffy, if not. So aside from us from Kyodo News in the Manila Bureau, a lot of Japanese reporters came to the Philippines. And we were me personally, I was amazed how persistent Japanese reporters are, because they would I guess they slept overnight waiting outside the prison. Because everyone was waiting where Luffy and the other detainees will be flown out of the country. So, yeah, they were like...
They're all trying to get a footage of him, right? Like,
right. And
wow,
then,
dedication.
especially to you.
Wow. From the Japanese newspaper's perspective, that's like one of the biggest topics, like from the Philippines. So yeah, I guess like all the Manila reporters like went there to like cover it. Yeah, so I'm relieved to like hear that like we have of a similar culture, like staking out in the Manilas and the Yochi, Asagake, morning attacks and night attacks in Japan. It's a tough job like everywhere.
Yeah.
So you covered the Japan like ASEAN summit over the weekend. Like how was it?
Well, actually we were our bureau chief, Mr. Sasaki, was there the whole time, but I'm working remotely from the headquarters. So it's I remember early this year our President Marcos also came to Japan for a state visit to the Prime Minister. So comparing that one from this weekend's activity, it's quite different, because of course we are with the other Southeast Asian countries. But I guess one of the things for the Philippines that we got out of this summit was first the Japanese government highlighted its intention to sign the reciprocal access agreement. So it's like an agreement between Manila and Tokyo, wherein both our armed forces can train in each other's country. So that's one of the highlights there. And of course, I think the Philippine government is happy to bring home a lot of Japanese investment pledges, because in the Philippines, our cultures have been, I guess, quite intertwined for the longest time. So there are a lot of Japanese companies there, a lot of Japanese products. So I think that's what the Philippines is looking forward to having.
How is like this whole thing perceived in the Philippines, the issue, like rising tension between China and Japan, and the maritime threat from China, if you ask ordinary people there?
Actually it's before, during the former president Duterte's time, it was because President Duterte was thought to be somehow close to China. So when President Marcos came in, there was a big, very noticeable change with regard how the Philippines tackles the maritime issue. So it's very it became, I guess, very clear starting this year that our government would let journalists embed to the, we call it West Philippine Sea. So reporters would embed on their ships, so we could get firsthand information of what's really going on, and so the issue becomes more publicized, and people are starting to talk about it. And also because governments like Japan, the U.S. are now very vocal about their support. So I think Filipinos generally are also surprised about how the shift from the Philippines being a friend of China to now somehow leaning to the other side, something like that.
Interesting. I like to talk about something lighter, that's a very very insightful information, and then now we are running out of time, so I'm gonna top it off with something
Speaking of what people think of China, what do what do people think of Japan? Is it anime big, and music, food?
Especially after the pandemic, I see a lot of my friends coming here to Tokyo.
Nice.
Especially this time, because Filipinos love because it's really hot in Manila. So a lot of Filipino tourists are. I'm sure one of you might have come across a Philippine gene, because a lot of Filipinos are visiting Japan. We love Japan for its anime. Actually, they're showing one on Netflix right now, and Filipinos are big on Netflix. So
which one is this?
It's hard to say.
Okay.
Yu Hakusho.
It's one of my favorite mangas.
It's a classic.
I grew up reading it.
I grew up watching it on TV dubbed in Tagalog.
Oh, wow.
And the title was Ghost Fighter. I don't know.
Yu Hakusho ですね。
懐かしいですね。
I didn't know it's so popular in the Philippines.
Oh, that's cool.
That's cool. Amazing.
For someone who's visiting the Philippines or Manila, what would you recommend, food-wise or sightseeing or?
Well, if you're staying in the metro, in Manila, there's this old Manila city. So there are still Spanish structures preserved there. and it's also kind of historic for Japan and the Philippines because of the war. But then, of course, Makati City is the business district, so it's more like Tokyo, this part of Tokyo. But for someone, I guess, who's more into hiking, for instance, there are a lot of nice trails in the Philippines. Some of them you don't have to take the plane. I mean, you don't. It's not because the Philippines is made up of several islands. So, but there are very some sites are close to Metro Manila, so you can just travel on a car or bus, and then. But one thing, because I have to warn the listeners that traffic is really bad. It's totally different here in Tokyo, where you can, trains are very efficient, but in Manila, especially this season, it's the Christmas season, so
it's kind of like New Year's season in Japan. It's very crowded. Yeah. Or like I was at Omotesando the other day, and it was just I could not move. It was one of the most crowded I've seen in recent years, I feel. Yeah.
I never get closer to the center of Tokyo like during the holiday season. That's my rule.
Smart move.
Right. Well, thank you for joining us, Marika-san.
Thank you so much. Maraming salamat. Arigatou gozaimasu.
はい、今回は、マニラ支局から、マリカーさんをお迎えして、収録させていただきました。どうもありがとうございます。海外部では、共同ニュースプラスというサイトで日本や世界で起きた出来事について英語のニュースを発信しています。皆さんの興味のある記事もたくさん掲載されていると思いますので、ぜひチェックしてみてください。それでは皆さん、
See you next time!